camp just started, and the quarterback competition in Cleveland already feels like it's over.
The Browns thought they had a plan, develop the rookies, play it safe, but then Shedeur Sanders showed up, and everything changed. Before the first snap, fans were chanting his name. By the end of practice, it wasn't a QB battle, it was a blowout. So now the question isn't if Shedeur's ready, it's how much longer can Cleveland pretend he's not. The rise begins, how day one became a turning point. Training camp had barely kicked off. Fans were still trickling into their seats, scrolling through their phones, chatting about the quarterback battle they were expecting to see. But before the first 11-on-11 drill even began, something unexpected happened. A chant started building from the rope lines, slow at first, then louder, clearer, undeniable. QB1, QB1. And no, they weren't calling for Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl MVP. They weren't cheering for Kenny Pickett, the more experienced name. They weren't even hyping Dylan Gabriel, the third rounder who was supposedly next in line. All eyes and voices were on Shedeur Sanders, the so-called QB4, the 5th round pick, the one they said would need time, the one they said wasn't ready. But on that field, he didn't look like someone waiting for his moment. He looked like someone taking it. From the first rep, Shedeur's presence was different. The spiral on his passes was tighter. The timing with receivers looked automatic. He wasn't guessing. He was reading, reacting, and firing like a veteran. There was no panic in his dropbacks, no wasted motion in his delivery. He was in command. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel, who many expected to win this battle by default, was struggling. His throws sailed. His timing was off. One deep out floated and missed entirely. Another short route nearly turned into an interception. He wasn't unplayable. He wasn't a disaster. But in a quarterback room where competition is real and every rep matters, not awful doesn't move the needle. Shedeur didn't just look good, he looked like the best quarterback on the field. And in Cleveland, a city that's cycled through starter after starter for 2 decades, the fans recognized it immediately. This wasn't a fluke, this wasn't a feel-good rookie moment. This was a problem for everyone ahead of him on the depth chart. From development project to franchise disruptor. On paper, this was never supposed to be Shedeur Sanders' moment. The analyst had already written the script. Guys like Tony Grossi on ESPN Cleveland were saying it flat out. Sheduer would likely be inactive on most Sundays, a developmental player stashed behind veterans and higher picks. The talk was all about the long game. Dylan Gabriel, with his supposed intangibles and system fit, was being framed as the more NFL-ready option. It was all about experience, patience, and sticking to the plan. But that plan didn't survive day one. Because on the field, on actual grass, in front of real fans, against live defenses, the narrative collapsed. That 4-year project talk, gone. That assumption that Gabriel had the edge, laughable. When it was time to take real reps, Shedeur Sanders didn't just keep up, he set the standard. The routes weren't just completed, they were owned. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. One snap, one read, one perfect strike after another. It was clean, confident, and consistent, and the fans knew exactly what they were watching. Every rep brought louder cheers. Every crisp completion had heads turning. There wasn't manufactured hype, it was an organic reaction. Shedeur didn't just flash potential, he showed command. You could feel the momentum shifting in real time. This wasn't some rookie moment in a low-pressure setting. This was a young quarterback stepping into a spotlight and turning up the brightness. Shedeur wasn't supposed to challenge the depth chart yet, but the way he played, he didn't just challenge it, he lit it on fire. And suddenly, that developmental year everyone expected started to look more like an opportunity right now. What the tape shows and why it matters. Let's break down the numbers because the tape doesn't lie, and neither do the stats. During closed OTA sessions earlier this offseason, Shedeur Sanders completed an eye-opening 77% of his passes. He threw 9 touchdowns and had just a single interception, and even that came off a deflection. These weren't padded numbers in garbage time drills either. They came in full speed, competitive reps. Shedeur was efficient, clean, and composed. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel was given more reps and often faced softer defensive looks. And yet, despite every advantage, his performance was shaky. Timing was off. His rhythm broke down under pressure. Stringing together consistent completions seemed like a challenge. The gap between the two wasn't subtle, it was glaring. And when training camp began, that trend didn't disappear. It got worse. Shedeur's throws looked like NFL bullets. Clean spirals, quick releases, red zone fades that hit receivers in stride. The timing routes, the toughest throws for young QBs were flawless. Multiple beat writers took notice, pointing out his anticipation, his eye discipline, and most importantly, his command of the offense. He didn't look like a kid getting his feet wet. He looked like a quarterback taking over. Gabriel, on the other hand, opened his camp reps with 3 straight misfires. One ball sailed high, the next came out late, the third nearly picked off. The crowd felt the difference, and they didn't stay silent. Groans, murmurs, even a few fans shaking their heads in disbelief. This isn't about media narratives. This isn't fan bias. This is NFL, and NFL tells the truth. Media spin versus reality check. You'd think the rookie who lit up day one, who walked into camp, took command of the huddle, delivered strike after strike, and left the field to chants of QB1 would be the biggest story in Cleveland. You'd think his name would be on every sports page, every talk show, every headline. But that's not what happened. Instead, Cleveland's local media quickly tried to pump the brakes. Analysts echoed phrases like 4-year plan, let's not rush development, and it's too soon to draw conclusions. They shifted the spotlight away from performance and back onto pedigree. The talking point became about process, not results. Why? Because Gabriel was drafted higher, because there was more investment, because the franchise didn't plan for this. Translation, the guy who earned it might have to wait, and the guy who hasn't gets protected. But here's the thing, the players see what's happening. The locker room feels the shift, and fans, they're already making up their minds. You can't hide what's happening on the field behind press conference sound bites. You can't unsee the difference between confidence and caution, between sharp execution and missed reads. And the longer the Browns delay what's obvious, the more credibility they risk losing, not just with the fan base, but inside their own building, because this isn't about emotion. It's not about hype. It's about NFL. Pure and simple. And when it comes to quarterback play, the film doesn't lie. Shedeur Sanders has shown control, poise, and a live arm under pressure. He's made throws that matter. He's taken command like a leader. Dillon Gabriel hasn't. The locker room is already choosing. Fans didn't need long to decide. They saw the zip on the ball, the confidence in the pocket, and the chance for QB1 started almost immediately. But while public opinion turned fast, the more telling shift is happening quietly inside the building. According to team sources, Shedeur Sanders isn't just throwing touchdowns, he's earning trust, and not in some abstract future potential kind of way. Rookies are asking to warm up with him before drills. Second-year receivers are pulling him aside after practice to work on timing routes. They're gravitating toward him, not because he's flashy, but because he delivers. He communicates clearly. He throws a catchable ball. He runs the offense like a pro. Even the veterans, guys who've been through countless camps and quarterback cycles, are paying attention. They're not saying much, but they're watching, and in the NFL, that silence says everything. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel is operating like a rookie still learning the system. He's not blowing it, but he's not standing out either. And in this league, not being noticed is almost worse than making mistakes. Because when a locker room starts tilting toward one guy, everything around it starts to shift. Reps stop feeling like earned opportunities. They start feeling like political favors. Depth charts lose meaning, and the coaching staff starts hearing the whispers grow louder by the day. Why isn't 12 getting more snaps? How much longer are we pretending this is close? The clock is ticking and the pressure is rising. Behind the numbers and ahead of the moment. Let's get brutally honest. Dillon Gabriel might have been drafted 2 rounds earlier. He might be sitting above Shedeur Sanders on the official depth chart. But what's happening on the field isn't about projections anymore. It's about production. And right now, the difference between the two isn't theoretical. It's visible, it's measurable, and it's growing. Poise under pressure, timing on difficult routes, velocity in tight windows, command in the huddle. These aren't qualities you develop later. They're either there or they're not. And Sheduer, he's not just keeping up with the competition, he's pulling away from it. But here's where things get tricky. The more Sheduer excels, the more the narrative tries to shift. It stops being about what he is doing and starts focusing on what he supposedly lacks. Pedigree, experience, draft capital, everything except what he's actually putting on tape. But the field doesn't lie, and neither does the film, because when all the scouting reports and pre-draft labels go up in flames under the pressure of real reps, one thing remains. Truth, and the truth is simple. Shedeur Sanders is outperforming the competition, not just in flashes, not just in potential. Draft night doubts and the price of being different. This story didn't begin with a training camp spiral or a viral chant from the crowd. It started months earlier, on draft night. Shedeur Sanders, coming off a 4,100-yard, 37-touchdown season and praised for his composure under relentless pressure, slipped all the way to the 5th round. Not because of talent, but because he had his own brand. Because he entered interviews with confidence, not deference. Because he didn't play by the NFL's unspoken political rules. Rules that reward obedience over authenticity. So the league punished him. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, a more traditional, quieter, yes sir kind of quarterback, went earlier. He checked the boxes, said the right things, fit the mold. But now that they're on the same field, in the same drills, under the same pressure, that mold is cracking. Gabriel was picked for being coachable. Shedeur was passed over for being powerful. But NFL doesn't care about PR or packaging. It cares about performance. And the moment the cleats hit the grass at Browns training camp, it became clear who brought the real fire. Because when the lights turned on, the buzz kicked in and the throws started flying, power won and Shedeur Sanders never looked back. Sheduer off the field, the leadership no one expected. While other rookies were chasing cameras, chasing clout, or trying to go viral on social media, Shedeur Sanders was doing something entirely different, something real. He was building trust. Before training camp even kicked off, Shedeur made a decision that spoke volumes. He skipped the glitz of the ESPYs, where most young stars would be desperate to get noticed, and instead chose to host a fundraiser for victims of a local apartment fire in Cleveland. No PR stunt, no NFL branding, no corporate sponsor, just Shedeur serving food, shaking hands, raising money, and showing up for a city he had just arrived in. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. That's not optics, that's leadership. And Cleveland noticed. Dillon Gabriel didn't do that. Kenny Pickett didn't do that. Even Joe Flacco, with all his veteran experience and a Super Bowl ring, didn't connect with the city on that level. So when fans chant QB1 from the stands, they're not just reacting to tight spirals or clean mechanics. They're responding to something deeper. They're responding to someone who shows up for the team, for the people, for the city. And that's what makes Shedeur Sanders different. He doesn't just have the talent, he has the heart. Pressure mounts and the clock starts ticking. The Browns had a plan, and on paper, it made sense. Bring in a veteran to stabilize the locker room. Let the rookies learn behind the scenes. Keep expectations low while building toward the future. It was a patient, calculated approach. But then Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the practice field and torched that entire timeline in a single day. He didn't just outplay Dillon Gabriel, he overwhelmed him. His command, his presence, his execution, it flipped everything. The depth chart suddenly felt outdated. The energy in the building shifted. Coaches whispered, players took notice, fans started chanting. And now, the Browns front office is staring at a choice they didn't expect to make this early. Stick to the original script, the slow development arc, the draft pecking order, or acknowledge the reality unfolding in real time. Because Shedeur isn't just making throws, he's making noise, he's making believers. And every day the Browns delay acting on what's obvious, the stakes rise. The fans aren't going to be patient, the locker room already feels the momentum, and the media, they're one more highlight clip away from turning this into a national debate. The Browns wanted time, but Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting. This isn't just a camp story, it's a quarterback revolution. Let's stop pretending. This isn't just a quarterback competition, it's a challenge to how the NFL does business, to how teams cling to draft status, to politics, to safe decisions. Because right now, Shedeur Sanders isn't just outplaying Dillon Gabriel, he's exposing the entire myth that waiting your turn is a virtue. This isn't about potential, it's not about upside, it's not even about development. It's about performance, it's about presence, and it's about leadership. Shedeur has stepped into the NFL with all three. He's commanding the huddle, elevating the energy, outthrowing expectations, and while Gabriel fumbles through and stall and Pickett floats through reps, Shedeur is stacking good days, on tape and in the locker room. But here's the problem. The longer the Browns drag their feet, the more obvious it becomes that this isn't an NFL delay, it's a political one. And that's dangerous, because the locker room sees it, the fans feel it, and if the Browns ignore it too long, they risk more than just credibility. They risk fracturing a culture that finally has something real to believe in. Shedeur Sanders isn't asking for the job, he's taking it. And the only question left is whether Cleveland is ready to admit what's already true. The moment is coming. Will the Browns be ready? Week 1 is coming fast. The media spotlight is heating up, and if Shedeur Sanders continues to dominate and still doesn't rise up the depth chart, the Browns won't just face scrutiny, they'll face outrage. Because the stats are there, the film is there, the leadership is there. And if you bury a quarterback who wins the room, wins the game, and wins over the people just because he wasn't your plan A, you don't just lose games, you lose trust. The revolution is underway. So here's the truth. The Browns walked into training camp thinking they were managing quarterbacks, but Shedeur Sanders is managing expectations and then shattering them. This isn't about proving the doubters wrong anymore. It's about proving the believers right. And when that moment comes, and it will, when Sheduer is finally under center with the city behind him and the league watching, one thing will be undeniable. The NFL didn't just overlook a quarterback, they underestimated a revolution.